basically the premise is to trail an indicator, right? You can see that this person is using the ADXVMAPlus. So the ADXVMAPlus, and the plus version has a couple of extra settings exposed, right? Some periods exposed here. And so this is for a trailing stop loss, right? So there's a break-even rule here. But the key to this question is trail basically 3 bars behind, right? So instead of following the indicator, on the current bar, follow the indicator 3 bars behind, right? That's basically the key to this question here. So that's our question. And in case anybody doesn't know, the AMA ADXVMA plus indicator, but also the ADXVMA, the primary indicator, the ADXVMA and this ADXVMA plus, they both come from, and there we go, Lizard Trader, right? So this is one of Fat Tails's kind of early indicators, but it's a part of the free library section here. And yeah, just to note, the free membership is a one-time fee. So just like with Futures.io, with Futures.io, there's a one-time membership fee in order to be able to post and see certain things. And definitely, if you want to use the download section of Futures.io, there is a one-time membership fee. And so Fat Tails, I guess, decided to create his own website so he could get compensated for all of his free work that he's been given to Big Mike there. So he's got the same business model, basically a one-time membership free, and then the free library. Everything in the free library section is free, and including all the updates and everything. So all right, so that's where. So Lizard Trader is where the AMA ADXVMA plus indicator comes from. So, all right, and so I already have that on my chart on a hybrid Renko type of bar here. All right, so let's get things open here, and we can start building that stop loss. All right, so with BlackBird here, first thing we have to do is start with our entry order, and I'll just use a market entry order because this question is about the stop loss here. So let's see here. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the parabolic SAR trailing from the quick list here. So I'm going to start off with this one, and then we'll go in and we'll replace the parabolic SAR with the ADXVMA plus, right? So when we open up the stop loss, we want to go to initial placement, and we can see the parabolic SAR is there, of course. And so we can then click on the parabolic SAR, and now we're going to replace it with that ADXVMA plus. So let's go into the Lizard Trader folder. So that's where we're going to find the ADXVMA plus, right? And yeah, so let's just double click on that, add that to the list. And now we need to go in and adjust the settings here, right? So looking at the screenshot, it has a DM of a 2-period DM, a 3-period ADX, and a 5-period VMA. All right, so let's get this open again. So the ADX was a 3-period. I'm not sure what period is. Let's see if we can find the other setting here. Okay, so the VMA was 5. So this period must be the DM. So that would be 2. Let's see, let me just double check here. Yeah, 2, 3, 5. Okay. All right, so I think that's right. So I think I have all my periods set correctly. So we'll test it here in a moment, and that'll tell us right away if I did get the periods correct. So, okay. And one last check. Oh yeah, and there is a 1 tick offset as well. So we want the indicator 3 bars back with a 1 tick offset. All right, so let's go and include the 1 tick offset. All right, so there's the indicator. And so if we're in a long trade, I take it we probably want -1 tick for a long trade, and a short trade would be +1 tick. All right, so we have the initial placement set up. Now we need to go into the trailing rules here, and let's replace the indicator name here. So, all right, so we need to go into the action here and replace the parabolic SAR, right, with the ADXVMAPlus. So let's open this all up again. And there is the plus. All right, so that was 3, that was 2, and the VMA, all right, was 5. Okay. Oh, and I didn't mention, but the ADXVMA plot is already selected, so it's on top there, right? So, okay, and let's put the offset in there. So, okay, so that's for the trailing part here, but he also wanted to include a after 10 ticks of profit, then move to break even, right? And then we'll start trailing there. All right. So we don't want this trailing to kick in immediately, right? We want to wait until that 10 ticks of profit and that break even, right? So what that means is that this trailing will kick in after 11 ticks of profit. You know, if we do the math in our head, right, the break even will activate at 10 ticks. So the trailing should activate at 11 ticks, right? So let's go put in that 11 tick profit delay there. And the easiest way to do that is just use the delay, or you could use the profit or loss, you know, either one will work in this situation. And we're going to use the ticks of movement here, and it's already on profit, and it's on 10 ticks. So we'll just increment it 1 to 11 ticks, and there we go, we're done. So now this trailing roll, so this trailing will activate after there's 11 ticks of a profitable move, right? So, okay, so now let's go and add the break even there. So, all right, so break even +1 at 10 ticks of profit. All right, so now we're going to go back into the trigger and go back to the delay and enable the ticks of movement in a profitable direction. And this time we want 10 ticks, so we're good there. Well, so now we need to go into the action and put in the break even. And what is a break even? Now, break even is basically moving your stop loss to the entry price, right? The entry price is break even. So, and shoot, what was it? Break even +1. Yeah, it is a break even +1. So just double check. And so there we have it. So we have the entry price, which is break even, and then we have an offset of +1. And so that's our break even +1. All right. And for a break even, right, that only happens once. So there is no repeat. So we're going to leave the repeat, leave it alone on none. So there's no repeating a break even. So, all right. that is it. It was that. Oh. And the key to this was, remember, we want to follow the indicator 3 bars back. So let's go back into the trailing rule here and go back. And oh no, we don't need to go into the indicator. We're going to set the displacement to 3. So there we go. So a displacement, NinjaTrader's displacement function basically is like looking back 3 bars, but on the chart, it takes 3 bars back and pulls it forward on the chart, so, visually it's looking at an indicator 3 bars ago, pulling it forward in time, but in a programming sense, it's the same thing as looking back 3 bars. So it's doing the same thing as a look back. So, all right, there we go. Now we got it all set up. So let's click OK and let's test it out. So, all right, let's go long here and let's move the trend up. And we can see that the indicator actually is not exactly on the tick. So the stop loss is to the nearest tick. So, which would be either, half a tick down or half a tick up, whichever side is closer. So, all right, so there we go. We just had our break even happen. And now we have to wait. Let's slow this down a little bit. Now we have to wait for the ADX to climb higher than the stop loss. And so it's going to take maybe 1 or 2 more bars. Not sure how many more bars it's going to take. And then it'll start trailing there. All right, so it looks like 1 more bar. Yeah, 1 more bar will start trailing the stop loss. Let's see. Yeah. Seems like the stop loss should be right there where my cursor's at. But let's wait for 1 more bar to close here. See if it kicks in. And okay, there we go. So now it's trailing. So, all right, so let me just double check my trailing action here. And, all right, yeah, it is on 3. Oh, I wonder. Yeah, I might have gotten the period settings wrong. Let's see, 3, 2, false 5. 3, 2, false 5. That looks correct. Oh yeah, I do have a -1 tick offset. So let's see. All right, yeah, okay. So this is pretty tight. Yeah, so maybe it's just the 1 tick offset there. But if, of course, if the stop loss is a little too far behind, you could always reduce the displacement there, and then the stop loss will start trailing a little closer there. All right, so if we close that out, let's go long. So, and let's move this forward. All right, so we're waiting for the break even to kick in. There we go, there's our break even. And now the ADXVMAPlus, right, needs to surpass the stop loss there, and then the stop loss will start following it. There we go. All right, now the stop loss is following the ADXVMAPlus a little tighter now, right? All right, so that's it. We'll knock that, put that back. There we go. Let's see. Oh, yeah, there was one other thing I was going to mention. Obviously, when you're placing a stop loss on an indicator, right, sometimes that indicator might be on the wrong side of the market there. So since this question was using a Unirenko, that's probably not going to happen. But the tip here is when you are using an indicator to set your stop loss, for the initial placement, you typically don't want to use an indicator for the initial placement, in case the market is on the wrong side of your indicator, because if your indicator gives an invalid stop loss price, what's BlackBird going to do? It has to ignore the trade, basically, because your indicator, if your profit target or your stop loss generates an invalid price location, then BlackBird has to ignore that trade, right? Because BlackBird's not going to randomly decide where to put your stop loss or your profit target if you have an indicator that's in a valid price, right? So typically when you're using an indicator, you would want to, instead of using an indicator, this is for the initial placement, right? So you typically just want to use price and just go with, some kind of a fixed tick offset, or maybe use an ATR offset or something like that, right? So let's see here. So I'll just set that at a 20 tick offset there, right? From the entry price minus 20 ticks, right? So using all right, we need to get rid of the indicator here. There we go. So yeah, so when you want to trail an indicator, typically you want to start with some kind of a fixed tick offset, right? And then use the trailing rules to move your stop loss to that indicator, provided the indicator's on the right side of the market, right? So let's see here. So if we just have a 20 tick, and then actually let's make this something a little more outrageous. There we go, 30 ticks, so it's real obvious. And then in the trailing rules, to move that stop loss to the ADXVMA, we can add a third rule here. All right, so we'll create a trailing rule here that will do the initial move to the ADXVMA, right? So let's see here. So the trigger, so we can use a trigger to make sure that the indicator is on the correct side of the market, right? And so the trigger we want to use is the, where is it? Price versus indicator, right there, price versus indicator, right? So we can compare, right, the close of the bar to an indicator and make sure that the close, the closing price is on the correct side of the indicator, right? So for input B, so for that indicator, again, we're going to select the ADXVMAPlus. And so that was 3, that was 2. All right, and that was 5. There we go. So we want to make sure that the close is above the ADXVMA for a long trade, right? So A equal or above, well, if the closing price equals the indicator, that's probably not a good situation, because obviously if you move your indicator there, it's probably going to get hit by the market right away. So let's just say A above B, right? So input A needs to be above input B, and vice versa for a short. A below B. So, and also probably want like a little buffer between the close of the price, the close of the bar, right? A little buffer between the close and the indicator, you know, so you could take the closing price and then actually, I think it's easier to think of taking the indicator and then adding like a 5-tick buffer, right? So that way the close has to be above the indicator plus 5 ticks, right? So that provides a 5-tick buffer between the closing price and the indicator there, right? So, okay. So for example, let's close this out here. Let me move the market down. You know, so say for example, we wanted to take a short trade, right? Well, you can't put the stop loss below the market, right? That wouldn't work out for a short. But with those adjustments, I can go short, and our stop loss is now out there as a 30-tick stop loss. And then as soon as the market, right, moves 5 ticks past the indicator, and oh, so we had our break even, and then let's see what happened here. Oh, oops, sorry, I didn't finish. I didn't finish setting up that trailing roll there. I got a bit ahead of myself there. Okay, yeah. So this initial move, right? I moved it to, right? I moved it to the last price. So that's why that stop loss got filled there. So, sorry, I got a bit ahead of myself here. So, yeah, so this trailing roll here, this initial move trailing roll should have moved our stop loss to an indicator value, and in this case, the ADXVMA. There we go. And actually, I don't want a displacement this time. So I'm going to set the displacement down to 0, like that. So, and there we go. All right. So that's what we wanted to do. All right. So now, right, the market is below the ADXVMA. So if we wanted to go long, we can do that. So our stop loss is in a valid spot. And now we have to wait for the market to move up above the ADXVMAPlus. All right. So I only have, you know, a 5-tick buffer between, yeah, and you can see that basically the stop loss moved to break even first, and then it moved to the ADXVMA once we got that 5-tick separation there, right? So, right. So, you know, there's some, you know, considerations that need to be worked out, at least in this specific scenario here, right? There's some things that need to be worked out for this initial movement of the stop loss to the ADXVMA. You know, like one example is 5 ticks is probably not enough. You know, you probably want a little more of a buffer in today's volatile markets, you know, before moving your stop loss to the indicator. You know, so things like that, you know, details just kind of need to be worked out. But this is, you know, basically the process or the setup, you know, that you would use for setting your stop loss to an indicator or even a profit target. You know, you would use similar type of setup here, right? Use a fixed offset, you know, based on a valid, you know, a valid calculation, you know, such as an offset from your entry price, you know, using ticks or ATRs. And then in the trailing rolls here, you know, figure out a buffer between, the close of the bar in your indicator, right? And because this has a break-even rule, you might also want to factor in the break-even rules there as well within the trigger. So yeah, so there's some details to work out there. All right, so that does it for the first question there.